The frozen apparition. In the heart of a remote, snow-laden mountain range stood a solitary cabin, an escape for the Anderson family from the hustle of city life. The cabin, nestled amongst whispering pines, had been their winter retreat for years. This year, however, their retreat would turn into a chilling nightmare. On the coldest night of the year, with the temperature plummeting and the wind howling like lost spirits, the Andersons, David, his wife, Maria, and their two children, Lily and Max, gathered around the fireplace, seeking solace from the icy grip of winter. Unknown to them, a presence lurked in the shadows, an entity born from a tragedy long forgotten. As the night deepened, a ghostly figure emerged from the blizzard outside. It was a frozen apparition, a young woman, her eyes hollow with an endless longing. She was a victim of a past blizzard, lost and perished in the very mountains where the cabin stood. Now she roamed the winter nights, seeking the warmth that had been cruelly denied to her in life. At first, the Andersons felt an inexplicable chill, a cold that seeped into their bones, and an unease that whispered in the back of their minds. Then they began to see her, a fleeting glimpse in the window, a shadow in the corner of their eyes. The apparition was drawn to their living warmth, desperate to reclaim what she had lost. One fateful night, as the family slept, the ghostly woman made her move. She started with young Max, the smallest and most vulnerable. As she touched him, a frost spread across his body. By morning, Max was pale and unresponsive, his body temperature dangerously low. Panicked and confused, David and Maria did everything to warm their son, but the chill within him was unnatural, unyielding. As the days passed, Lily fell victim next, succumbing to the same cold embrace that had claimed her brother. The apparition, now almost tangible in her icy fury, continued her haunting. David was next, his strength and resolve no match for her relentless curse. Maria watched in horror as her family transformed into cold, lifeless versions of themselves, their warmth and vitality drained. Maria, the last surviving member, realized the tragic truth. The apparition was not just haunting them, she was possessing them, seeking to live through them by draining their life. But her touch was death, a hypothermic embrace from which there was no escape. In her final desperate act, Maria tried to confront the ghost, to plead with her to stop, but the apparition, lost in her own suffering and desire for warmth, could not hear her. Maria felt the chilling touch of the ghost, and as her body began to succumb to the icy possession, her last thoughts were filled with despair and sorrow for her family. The cabin in the mountains stood silent, a tomb encased in snow. The family remained there, frozen figures seated around a hearth with no fire, a haunting reminder of the ghostly woman's touch. She continued to roam the mountains, forever seeking the warmth of the living, leaving a trail of frost-bitten souls in her endless winter night. The Ice Queen's Labyrinth. In the remote snow-clad town of Nordenvind, nestled in the harsh northern wilderness, a chilling legend was whispered from generation to generation. Every 50 years, as winter reached its peak, the townsfolk braced for the resurrection of the Ice Queen, a mythical figure who emerged from the heart of the ancient glacier that loomed over the town. With her awakening, the town was enveloped in a sprawling maze of ice and snow, a labyrinth that twisted the streets and ensnared its residents. Elsa, a young librarian and history enthusiast, had grown up listening to the tales of the Ice Queen. She never imagined that she would witness the legend come to life on the eve of the 50-year cycle. As the first tendrils of ice crept through the town, Elsa knew that this was no mere story. It was a harrowing reality. The Ice Queen, a spectral figure of otherworldly beauty and terrifying power, roamed the labyrinthine streets of Nordenvind. Her presence brought an unnatural cold, a frost that seeped into the bones of the townsfolk, and with it, despair. The residents, trapped in the endless maze, sought desperately for a way to break the spell that bound their town to this eternal winter. Determined to free her town, Elsa delved into ancient texts and folklore, searching for any clue that could help. She came across a forgotten ritual hidden in the depths of the town's archives. It spoke of a way to banish the Ice Queen, but the cost was dire. The souls of those who performed the ritual would be forever bound to the maze, destined to guide lost souls through the icy labyrinth for eternity. With heavy hearts, Elsa and a group of brave volunteers decided to undertake the ritual. As they chanted the ancient incantations, the air around them shimmered with a frosty light. The Ice Queen, sensing the threat to her existence, unleashed her fury upon them. A tempest of snow and ice raged through the streets, but the volunteers pressed on, their voices united in the spell. As the ritual reached its climax, a blinding light enveloped the town, the ice beginning to recede and the labyrinth melting away. The Ice Queen let out a piercing scream before dissolving into a cascade of snowflakes, her reign over Nordenvind finally coming to an end. But victory came at a heartbreaking price. Elsa and her companions found themselves becoming part of the maze, their physical forms fading into ethereal entities. They had become the new guardians of the labyrinth, bound to guide those who would get lost in its remnants. Nordenvind was freed from the clutches of the Ice Queen, but the memory of the sacrifice lingered in the hearts of its residents. Every 50 years, as the threat of the Ice Queen's return loomed, new volunteers would step forward to perform the ritual, continuing the cycle of self-sacrifice and sorrow, ensuring the town's freedom and honoring the legacy of those who had given themselves to the maze. Elsa's spirit, along with those of her fellow volunteers, watched over Nordenvind, their whispers in the winter wind, a reminder of their eternal vigil. The icebound village. In the heart of a desolate northern wilderness, there existed an isolated village known as Frostvale. Cut off from the world, its existence was but a whisper, a rumor among those who dared to venture into the icy unknown. This enigmatic village, it was said, became completely encased in ice every December, disappearing from the world, only to re-emerge in the thaw of spring. This peculiar phenomenon caught the attention of an intrepid journalist, Edward Malone. Driven by curiosity and the promise of an incredible story, Edward set out to uncover the truth behind Frostvale. As he approached the village in late November, the first signs of the encroaching ice were already visible, creeping over the landscape like a slow, conquering frost. Upon his arrival, Edward found the villagers to be reticent and eerily calm about their impending fate. Their eyes, cold and distant, seemed to hold a chilling secret. He noticed strange symbols etched onto their homes, symbols that spoke of an ancient and forgotten lore. Determined to dig deeper, Edward delved into the village's archives, uncovering old manuscripts and tales of a time when the villagers had turned to the worship of a mysterious frost deity. They had sought eternal life, a way to become one with the eternal winter that embraced their land. In return, they were granted their wish, but it came with a grave curse. They were bound to the ice, their very souls twisted and transformed into something dark and inhuman. As December drew near, Edward witnessed the transformation firsthand. The villagers began to change, their bodies morphing into grotesque, icy figures. Their humanity faded, replaced by a malevolent force. They became the very shadows that lurked in the ice, part of the sinister presence that Edward had sensed since his arrival. Realizing the danger he was in, Edward tried to leave, but the ice had already encased the village, trapping him inside. His attempts to communicate with the outside world were futile, his signals lost in the frozen ether. As the final days of December approached, Edward felt the curse taking hold of him. His body began to change, his thoughts growing colder, aligning with the icy will of the frost deity. He understood then that there was no escape. He had become part of the story he sought to tell. His last entry in his journal, never to be discovered, read, "I came here to uncover a mystery, to tell a story, but now I am the story. I am Frostvale, forever bound to the ice, a warning to those who seek the truth behind the frozen shadows." And so, the village of Frostvale remained, a frozen enigma. Its inhabitants, including Edward, transformed into icy guardians of a forgotten deity, waiting for the thaw to release them, only to be encased again with each winter's return.